Welcome to Char TV. Tonight we're diving into a world filled with dark magic, mysterious figures, and eerie tales that stretch back centuries. Witches have always been part of our most haunting legends, weaving through history with stories of spells, curses, and encounters beyond imagination. But these aren't your typical Halloween witches. These are legends of powerful beings, feared and respected, from remote mountain tops to the darkest forests, where their names are still whispered with caution. I'm Mason, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey into the shadows of history, exploring the terrifying, the fascinating, and the downright strange stories of witches from around the world. If you're here for the spooky, the mysterious, and the spine-chilling, then you're in the right place. And before we dive in, I want to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you for supporting Char TV. We're so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you who joins makes this journey even more incredible. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we uncover the mysteries, the spooky, and the unexplainable. This is just the beginning, and there's so much more to come. So sit back, turn down the lights, and let's begin. Baba Yaga, deep within the ancient forests of Russia, where the trees loom tall like silent sentinels and the mist weaves through the branches like ghostly threads, there lives a creature both feared and revered, a witch known as Baba Yaga. Unlike any ordinary witch, Baba Yaga is a force of nature, a guardian of the boundary between the living and the dead. She dwells in a hut that stands upon giant chicken legs, moving through the forest as it pleases, turning its back to those unworthy and opening its door to those who dare to seek her out. The tales of Baba Yaga are as old as the forests themselves. She is depicted as a wild-looking woman with iron teeth and a nose so long it touches the ceiling when she sleeps. She flies not on a broomstick but in a mortar, steering with a pestle, sweeping away her tracks with a broom made of silver birch. But Baba Yaga is not merely a figure of fright. She is the keeper of wisdom, the knower of secrets, and the granter of wishes, for a price. There is a story of a young girl named Vasilisa, whose mother fell gravely ill. On her deathbed, she gave Vasilisa a small wooden doll. "Keep this doll with you always," she said. "Feed it when you can, and it will help you when you are in need." After her mother's passing, Vasilisa's father remarried a woman with 2 daughters of her own. Jealous of Vasilisa's beauty and kindness, they treated her cruelly, forcing her to perform the harder tasks and giving her the meagerest portions. One dark evening, the fire in their home went out, and the stepmother commanded Vasilisa to venture into the forest to seek fire from Baba Yaga. The sisters smirked, knowing that none who visited the witch ever returned. Clutching the wooden doll, Vasilisa entered the forest. The trees seemed to whisper warnings, and unseen eyes watched her every step. As night fell, she came upon a clearing where skulls with glowing eyes sat atop fence posts, casting an eerie light. At the center stood the hut on chicken legs, turning slowly. Little house, Vasilisa called out, her voice barely steady. "Turn your back to the forest and your front to me." With a groan of wood and creak of bones, the hut obeyed, lowering itself to the ground. The door swung open and Baba Yaga appeared, her eyes sharp as daggers. "What brings you here, child?" she rasped. Vasilisa bowed respectfully. "I've come to request fire for my home." Baba Yaga eyed her suspiciously. "Very well. If you complete 3 tasks for me, I shall grant your request. Fail, and you shall be my dinner." For 3 nights, Baba Yaga set her impossible tasks, separating grains of wheat from chaff, poppy seeds from dirt, all mixed together in massive piles. Each night, as Vasilisa despaired, the wooden doll whispered to her, "Fear not, dear one, feed me and rest." When she awoke, the tasks were miraculously completed. Baba Yaga was displeased but bound by her word. "Eh? You are a clever girl," she admitted. "Tell me, how did you succeed?" Vasilisa held the doll close. "With my mother's blessing," she replied. At the mention of blessings, Baba Yaga recoiled. "I have no power over those blessed," she spat. "Take your fire and leave." She handed Vasilisa a skull lantern, its eyes glowing with an inner flame. Hastening back through the dark woods, Vasilisa returned home. The skull's fiery gaze turned upon her cruel stepmother and stepsisters, and by morning they were gone, consumed, it is said, by their own malice reflected back upon them. Baba Yaga remains a figure of duality. She is a monster to some, a helper to others. Travelers who lose their way may find her hut appearing before them. If they show fear or disrespect, they might never leave her domain, but those who display courage and humility might gain wisdom or aid. There are tales of hunters who, lost and starving, stumbled upon her hut. Some were never seen again. Others returned with tales of feasts and knowledge beyond comprehension, their hair turned white from the experience. In the deepest parts of the forest, when the wind rustles through the leaves just so, some say you can hear the creaking of chicken legs and the soft cackle of an ancient witch. Baba Yaga endures, a reminder that the wild places of the world hold secrets and that not all who dwell there are bound by the laws of men. La Voisin. In the gilded halls and shadowed alleyways of 17th century Paris, where opulence and squalor coexisted side by side, there lived a woman who wielded a power that made even the nobility tremble, Catherine Monvoisin, better known as La Voisin. By day she was a midwife and a fortune-teller, a woman who moved among the common folk with an air of mystique, but by night she delved into darker arts, becoming the central figure in a web of intrigue, poison, and occult practices that would shake the very foundations of French society. La Voisin's home was a modest dwelling on the outside, but those who entered found a different world, a place adorned with strange symbols, the air thick with incense and whispered incantations. It was rumored that she hosted black masses, blasphemous ceremonies, where participants sought to invoke dark forces to grant their desires. The desperate and the ambitious came to her seeking solutions to their problems, rivals to be eliminated, lovers to be ensnared, fortunes to be gained. For the right price, La Voisin offered poisons crafted from exotic and deadly ingredients, as well as charms and curses said to be unstoppable. Her most notorious client was Madame de Montespan, the chief mistress of King Louis XIV. Consumed by jealousy and fear of losing the king's affections, Madame de Montespan allegedly sought La Voisin's services to secure her position. Together they performed rituals that involved sacrificial offerings and invocations of dark entities. But whispers in the court are dangerous, and soon rumors of a poison affair spread. Nobles began dying under mysterious circumstances, and fear gripped the upper echelons of society. The king, alarmed by the potential threat to his own life and the stability of his reign, ordered a secret investigation. La Voisin was arrested along with many of her associates. Under torture, she confessed to numerous crimes, poisonings, witchcraft, heresy, and plotting against the king. Her detailed confessions implicated hundreds, revealing a shadowy network that reached deep into the heart of the aristocracy. One chilling account from her confession described a ritual in a hidden chamber beneath her home. The walls were draped in black, lit only by the flicker of candles placed within hollowed human skulls. An altar stood at the center, where a defrocked priest conducted the ceremony. Participants wore masks, their identities concealed as they chanted incantations in a forgotten tongue. La Voisin claimed that during one such ritual, a figure appeared, a shadowy being with eyes like embers, offering to fulfill their desires at a steep price. Some dismissed her tales as the ravings of a tortured mind, but others believed every word, knowing her influence had been vast and her reach long. On February 22nd, 1680, La Voisin was executed by burning in the public square. As the flames consumed her, witnesses claimed she showed no fear, her eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the crowd. Some said she cursed those who betrayed her with her final breaths, and that a dark cloud passed over the sun at the moment of her death. But the story doesn't end there. In the years that followed, people reported sightings of a woman resembling La Voisin, wandering the narrow streets of Paris at night. Mothers warned their children to come inside before dark, lest they cross paths with the witch seeking revenge. Artifacts believed to have belonged to her surfaced from time to time. A charred pendant, a book of shadows, vials containing unknown substances. Those who possessed them often met with misfortune, illness, accidents, unexplained deaths. In the cellar of an old Parisian building, renovations uncovered a hidden chamber matching descriptions from the investigation, a room with walls blackened by soot, symbols etched into the stone, and a lingering sense of unease that sent workers fleeing. The legacy of La Voisin is a stain on the glittering facade of Paris's golden age, a reminder that beneath the surface of wealth and power, dark currents flow. Her story is a tapestry woven with threads of ambition, desperation, and the eternal human desire to control fate, no matter the cost. So, when you walk the historic streets of Paris, and the shadows lengthen under the gaslight glow, listen carefully. You might hear the echo of her footsteps, or catch a whisper of her name carried on the night air, a testament to a witch whose influence refused to die with her body. As the embers of our fire glow softly, and the night settles around us, these tales serve as a reminder that the world is vast and filled with mysteries. Witches, whether real or imagined, embody the fears and hopes that dwell within us all. They are figures who challenge the unknown, dance on the edge of darkness, and leave us questioning what lies beyond the veil of the ordinary. The Sea Witches of Brittany. Along the rugged coast of Brittany in northwestern France, where jagged cliffs meet the relentless surge of the Atlantic Ocean, there are whispers of beings who command the very waters, a sisterhood known as the Sea Witches of Brittany. The locals speak of them in hushed tones, eyes cast toward the ever-shifting sea that both sustains and threatens their way of life. These witches are said to inhabit isolated coves and hidden grottos accessible only when the tide is just right. Their homes are carved into the cliffs, obscured by sea mist and the veil of secrecy. By day they might appear as ordinary women, gathering herbs along the shoreline or mending nets in the distance. But by night, under the cloak of darkness and the watchful gaze of the moon, they perform rituals that stir the depths. Fishermen tell tales of calm seas turned treacherous without warning. One moment the waters are placid, the next a storm materializes as if summoned by unseen hands. Boats have been dashed against rocks, their crews swallowed by the merciless waves. Survivors, few and far between, speak of eerie chants heard just before disaster struck, melodies that seem woven into the wind itself. One such story is that of Jacques Leblanc, a seasoned sailor known for his skepticism of old superstitions. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, Jacques set out to sea despite warnings of an impending storm. "Old wives' tales," he scoffed, dismissing the concerns of his fellow villagers. "I've sailed these waters my whole life." As night fell, a dense fog enveloped his boat, the familiar coastline fading into obscurity. The air grew heavy and an unnatural silence descended, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves against the hull. Then, faintly at first, he heard it, a haunting song carried across the water, ethereal and beckoning. The melody was unlike anything he'd ever heard, both beautiful and mournful, sending a chill down his spine. Suddenly, the sea beneath him began to churn. Waves rose, not from any wind or natural current, but seemingly from the depths themselves. His boat rocked violently as the water swelled into towering walls on all sides. Through the mist, Jacques glimpsed figures standing upon the surface of the water, women draped in seaweed and shells, their hair flowing like tendrils of ink in the water. Their eyes glowed with a luminescent light, and their voices joined in a chorus that resonated with the very heartbeat of the ocean. "Who are you?" Jacques shouted into the storm. The nearest figure regarded him with a cold expression. "You dare trespass upon our domain without offering." "I meant no harm," he cried, clinging to the mast as the boat lurched. "All who sail these waters owe a debt," she intoned, "and the sea always collects." With a gesture, she directed a surge that capsized the vessel. Jacques was plunged into the icy embrace of the sea, the cold stealing the breath from his lungs. As he struggled, he felt hands, both delicate and unyielding, pulling him deeper. When dawn broke, fragments of his boat washed ashore, but Jacques was never seen again. The villagers mourned but were not surprised. They knew the cost of ignoring the unwritten laws of the sea. Others have had more fortunate encounters. Some fishermen leave offerings, small tokens of bread, wine, or woven charms, casting them into the water before setting sail, In return, they find their nets full and the waters calm. It's said that these acts of respect appease the sea witches, who then grant safe passage. One elderly woman, Madeline, claimed to have met a sea witch in her youth. While gathering shells along the tide pools, she slipped and fell, injuring her leg. As she lay helpless, the tide rising, a woman appeared, her eyes the colour of the stormy sea. "You are hurt," the woman said, her voice soothing. Madeline nodded, fear gripping her. The woman placed a hand over the wound, and a warmth spread through Madeline's leg. When she looked again, the injury was healed, leaving only a faint scar shaped like a winding wave. "Remember," the woman whispered, "the sea gives as much as it takes." Madeline never forgot that encounter. She spent her life advocating respect for the sea and its mysteries, teaching others the old ways of harmony rather than dominion. To this day, the sea witches of Brittany remain an integral part of local lore. Whether viewed as vengeful spirits or guardians of the ocean's balance, their presence is felt by all who live along those rugged shores. The sea, in all its beauty and terror, is a force beyond full understanding, a realm where the line between reality and the supernatural blurs, and where those who listen closely might just hear the echoes of ancient songs woven into the waves. The Witch of the Black Forest. In the heart of Germany lies the Schwarzwald, or the Black Forest, a vast expanse of dense woodland so thick that sunlight barely pierces the canopy, casting the forest floor into perpetual twilight. It's a place where time seems to stand still, and the modern world feels a million miles away. Among its towering pines and tangled underbrush, countless legends have been born, but none so enduring or chilling as that of the Witch of the Black Forest. The locals speak of a woman named Helena, who lived centuries ago on the outskirts of a small village nestled at the forest edge. She was a healer, skilled in the use of herbs and remedies drawn from the forest itself. For a time she was valued for her knowledge, and many sought her aid. But as is often the case, what people do not understand, they come to fear. Whispers began to circulate. How did she come by such knowledge? Why did she always seem untouched by the passing years? When a virulent illness swept through the village, claiming the lives of many, fingers pointed to Helena. "She consorts with dark forces," the villagers muttered. "She has cursed us." One cold evening, a mob gathered, torches flickering like angry fireflies against the darkness. They stormed Helena's cottage, dragging her out into the night. "Leave this place," they demanded. "If you ever return, we will not spare you." Heartbroken and betrayed, Helena retreated deep into the Black Forest, where few dared to venture. There the shadows welcomed her, and the forest became both her sanctuary and her instrument of vengeance. Soon after, strange occurrences plagued the village. Children vanished without a trace, lured by phantom lights dancing at the forest's edge. Crops withered overnight, and livestock were found dead, their eyes wide with terror. One by one, villagers reported unsettling encounters. A hunter claimed he saw a figure gliding between the trees, a woman with eyes that gleamed like moonlight on water. Woodcutters heard whispers in the wind, voices that spoke their names and beckoned them deeper into the woods. Desperate, the villagers sent a group of their bravest men to confront Helena and put an end to the curse they believed she had cast upon them. Armed with swords and iron crosses, they ventured into the Black Forest. Days passed, and the men did not return. Some say they lost their way, the forest shifting around them like a living maze. Others believe they fell victim to traps laid by Helena, a branch snapping here, a shadow moving there, leading them ever deeper until they were hopelessly lost. One survivor stumbled back into the village weeks later, half mad with fear. His clothes were tattered and his eyes held a haunted look. "She's not human," he whispered. "The forest is hers, and it obeys her commands." As the years turned into decades, the village dwindled. Those who remained lived in constant fear, avoiding the forest and its surrounding areas. Newcomers dismissed the tales as superstitions, but soon found themselves entangled in the web of the witch's influence. A traveling merchant named Otto decided to take a shortcut through the Black Forest to save time on his journey. Warned by locals, he scoffed at their warnings. Fairy tales and old wives' tales, he laughed. I have no time for such nonsense. As he ventured into the forest, the path grew narrow, and the trees seemed to close in around him. The air grew thick, and an unnatural silence fell. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the path ahead, a woman cloaked in shadows, her face obscured. Good day, Otto called out. Can you point me toward the nearest town? The woman raised her head, revealing eyes that shimmered with an eerie light. You should not be here, she said softly. Otto felt a chill creep up his spine. I mean no harm. I'm just passing through. The forest does not take kindly to trespassers, she replied. Turn back while you still can. Stubbornly, Otto pressed on. I cannot turn back now. My journey is too important. The woman stepped aside, gesturing for him to continue. Very well, but remember you were warned. As Otto moved past her, the path began to twist and turn in impossible ways. No matter which direction he chose, he found himself back at the same clearing. Panic set in as daylight waned and shadows lengthened. Night fell, and with it came the whispers, soft at first, then growing louder. Voices echoed among the trees, calling his name, taunting him. Shapes flitted at the edge of his vision, a glimpse of a hand here, a flash of movement there. Exhausted and terrified, Otto collapsed to the ground. The last thing he saw was the woman standing over him, her eyes piercing through the darkness. He was found days later by a group of travelers, babbling incoherently about the witch and the living forest. His hair had turned white, and he never spoke another lucid word. To this day, the Black Forest remains a place of mystery and unease. Hikers and adventurers report strange phenomena, compasses spinning wildly, electronic devices failing without explanation, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Some have captured photographs of misty figures among the trees, or recorded sounds that defy explanation, laughter that fades into the rustling leaves, or whispers that seem to come from all directions at once. Whether Helena still walks the forest or has become one with it, no one can say for certain, but those who live near the Black Forest know better than to ignore the old warnings. Respect the woods, they say, stay on the path, and never venture in after dark. For the witch of the Black Forest is more than a legend. She is a guardian of secrets, a spectre of vengeance, and a reminder that some places are governed by forces beyond our understanding. As the fire dies down and the night grows deeper, these stories linger in the air, weaving their way into our thoughts and dreams. The witches of old may be figures of legend, but their tales carry truths about the world and ourselves, about fear, respect, and the unknown realms that lie just beyond our sight. So, when you find yourself in a place where the veil between worlds feels thin, remember these stories, listen to the whispers of the wind, heed the warnings of those who've come before, and tread carefully. The witches of Zugarramurdi, deep in the misty valleys of northern Spain, nestled within the rugged landscape of the Basque country, lies the quiet village of Zugarramurdi. To the unknowing eye, it's a place of serene beauty, with stone cottages and winding paths that lead into dense forests. But beneath its peaceful facade lies a history steeped in darkness, a tale of witches and unholy rites that have left an indelible mark on the land. In the early 17th century, Zugarramurdi was a place where the old ways lingered. The villagers held on to ancient traditions, whispering prayers to the spirits of the earth and sky. Among them was a woman named Maria de Chimildegui, known for her knowledge of herbs and the healing arts. She was respected by some, but others eyed her with suspicion, claiming she possessed powers beyond the natural. One fateful evening, a shepherd named Juanes de Guaybaru was tending his flock near the entrance of a large cave just outside the village. As dusk settled, he heard distant voices carried on the wind, laughter and singing that seemed to emanate from deep within the earth. Curious, he ventured closer, the flickering glow of torchlight drawing him into the mouth of the cave. What he witnessed inside chilled him to his core. A gathering of men and women danced around a roaring fire, their shadows twisting grotesquely against the cave walls. They chanted in a language he didn't recognize, invoking names that made his skin crawl. At the center stood Maria, her eyes reflecting the flames as she led the congregation in their dark ceremony. Suddenly she looked directly at him, a sly smile creeping across her face. Panicking, Juanes fled into the night, the haunting echoes of their chants pursuing him. He returned to the village, breathless and pale, spreading tales of witchcraft and devilry. Fear took root, and the whispers grew louder. Accusations flew as neighbor turned against neighbor. The Inquisition, ever vigilant against heresy, descended upon Zugarramurdi with ruthless efficiency. Dozens were arrested, subjected to brutal interrogations and torturous methods designed to elicit confessions. Maria was among those seized. Under the weight of pain and despair, she confessed to participating in aquelarres, nocturnal gatherings where witches communed with the devil himself. She spoke of feasts where human flesh was consumed, of spells cast to blight crops and sicken livestock, and of flights through the night sky to attend grand Sabbaths. The caves of Zugarramurdi became infamous as the supposed epicenter of witchcraft in the region. In 1610, the Inquisition held a massive auto da fe in the nearby city of Logrono. 11 people were condemned to burn at the stake, their deaths meant to purge the evil that had infested the land. But the flames did not cleanse the shadows that lingered in Zugarramurdi. In the years that followed, villagers reported strange occurrences, ghostly figures seen wandering the forest at night, unearthly sounds echoing from the caves, and a pervasive feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Travelers who dared to explore the cave of Zugarramurdi spoke of an oppressive atmosphere within, as if the very air was thick with sorrow and malice. Some claimed to hear whispers in the darkness, a chorus of voices speaking in hushed tones, beckoning them deeper into the abyss. One such traveler, a scholar named Diego, ventured into the cave to separate fact from folklore. Armed with a lantern and a journal, he descended into the cavernous depths. As he delved further, the light from the entrance faded, and an unnatural chill enveloped him. He began to hear faint murmurs, indistinct at first but growing clearer. The voices seemed to surround him, uttering his name in a haunting cadence. Panic set in, and he turned to leave, only to find the passages had changed, twisting and turning, in ways they hadn't before. The lantern flickered, and in its dying glow, he glimpsed shadowy figures emerging from the walls, ethereal shapes with hollow eyes and outstretched hands. They whispered of vengeance and pain, of injustices suffered and debts unpaid. Diego's screams were swallowed by the darkness. When he failed to return, a search party was dispatched but found no trace of him. Only his journal was recovered at the cave's entrance, filled with frantic writings that devolved into illegible scrolls. To this day, the people of Zugarramurdi tread lightly near the caves. They leave offerings at the entrance, flowers, candles, tokens of respect, to appease the restless spirits believed to dwell within, and on certain nights when the veil between worlds is thinnest, they lock their doors and whisper prayers, hoping to keep the shadows at bay. The Pendle Witches. In the brooding landscape of Lancashire, England, where rolling hills meet stark moorlands, there lies Pendle Hill, a place forever entwined with tales of witchcraft and dark magic. The year was 1612, a time rife with superstition and fear of the unknown. It was here that one of the most notorious witch trials in English history unfolded, leaving a legacy of terror that persists to this day. The story centers around two feuding families, the Devices and the Chattoxes, both led by matriarchs rumored to possess supernatural abilities. Elizabeth Southerns, known as Old Demdike, was the head of the Device family, while Anne Whittle, or Old Chattox, led the Chattoxes. Both were wise women who made their living through healing, begging, and, some whispered, more nefarious means. The catalyst for the ensuing chaos was a chance encounter between Alison Device, granddaughter of Old Demdike, and a peddler named John Law. Alison asked Law for some pins, and when he refused, she cursed him in a fit of anger. Shortly after, Law suffered a stroke, which he attributed to her witchcraft. The accusation set off a chain reaction. Under pressure and likely torture, Alison confessed not only to bewitching Law, but also implicated her family and the Chattoxes in various acts of sorcery and murder, tales of covens meeting on Pendle Hill, casting spells, and engaging in unholy rituals spread like wildfire. Authorities arrested 12 people, including children as young as 9. The trials were a spectacle with sensational testimonies that painted vivid pictures of dealings with the devil, the use of effigies to harm enemies, and the brewing of potions from gruesome ingredients. One particularly chilling account came from Janet Device, Alazon's 9-year-old sister, who testified against her own family. She spoke in detail about gatherings at Malkin Tower, their home, where witches plotted and performed dark ceremonies. Her testimony was instrumental in sealing their fates. In August 1612, 10 of the accused were found guilty and hanged on Gallows Hill. Their bodies were buried in unmarked graves, but their stories did not rest. In the centuries that followed, Pendle Hill became synonymous with the supernatural. Locals whispered of spectral figures roaming the moors, women in tattered clothing, their faces gaunt and eyes hollow, appearing on mist-shrouded nights. Travelers reported feeling an oppressive presence, as if unseen eyes were watching their every move. One modern tale recounts the experience of Lucy, a young woman who decided to explore the area during Halloween. Skeptical of the legends, she trekked up Pendle Hill as dusk settled. As she reached the summit, a dense fog rolled in, obscuring the path. Struggling to find her way, she heard faint voices carried on the wind, laughter mingled with whispers, shapes moved in the periphery of her vision, darting behind rocks and disappearing into the haze. Panic set in as the voices grew louder, more insistent. "Join us," they beckoned. "Stay with us." Desperate, Lucy tried to retrace her steps, but found the landscape unnervingly altered. The path twisted in unfamiliar ways, leading her deeper into the unknown. Just as fear threatened to overwhelm her, a figure emerged from the fog, a young girl with sad eyes and a pale complexion. "You're not safe here," the girl whispered. "They don't like strangers." Before Lucy could respond, the girl pointed toward a faint light in the distance. Following it, Lucy stumbled back onto the main trail, the fog dissipating as suddenly as it had appeared. When she turned to thank the girl, she was gone. Upon returning to the village, Lucy recounted her experience. An old man listened intently before showing her a faded portrait hanging in the local pub. It was a drawing of Janet Device. "That's her," Lucy gasped. "Some say her spirit roams these hills," the old man said quietly, perhaps seeking redemption for the role she played. The Pendle witches remain a haunting presence in Lancashire. The area attracts tourists and paranormal enthusiasts, but locals advise caution. Pendle Hill holds onto its secrets, they warn, and those who seek them may not like what they find. Isabel Goudie. In the mist-laden highlands of Scotland, where ancient castles crumble and the echoes of bagpipes carry on the wind, there lived a woman whose name became a byword for witchcraft. Isabel Goudie. Her story is one of intrigue and terror, a glimpse into a world where the veil between reality and the supernatural was perilously thin. Around 1662, Isabel resided in the small village of Oldham, a place steeped in folklore and superstition. Unlike many accused of witchcraft, Isabel came forward voluntarily, offering detailed confessions that astounded and horrified the authorities. She spoke of entering into a pact with the devil, whom she referred to as the Dark Man, sealing the agreement with a blood oath. She described in vivid detail how she and other witches would meet in the dead of night, transforming into animals, hares, cats and crows, to travel unseen across the countryside. Her tales included visits to the fairy queen in a hidden realm, where time moved differently and the wonders were beyond mortal comprehension. She recounted learning spells and enchantments, reciting incantations that could blight crops, sicken livestock, and even steal the very light from the sun. One of her chilling confessions detailed the use of a magical doll, a puppet made in the likeness of a victim. By piercing it with pins or burying it in the ground, they could inflict pain or death from afar. Isabel claimed responsibility for numerous misfortunes that had befallen her neighbours. The authorities were both fascinated and terrified by her admissions. Some believed she was delusional or seeking attention, but others took her words at face value, seeing in them evidence of a widespread conspiracy against the natural order. Despite the gravity of her confessions, there is no record of Isabel's execution. Some speculate she was imprisoned indefinitely or died of natural causes. Others whisper that she escaped, aided by the very forces she claimed to serve. In the years that followed, the village of Old Urn became a focal point for strange occurrences. Crops failed inexplicably, and animals were found dead without apparent cause. Villagers reported seeing a mysterious woman wandering the outskirts at twilight, her form shifting between that of a human and a hare. A farmer named Ewan recounted an unsettling encounter. While tending to his fields at dusk, he noticed a hare watching him from the edge of the woods. Its eyes glinted with an intelligence that sent a shiver down his spine. Recalling tales of witches in animal form, he aimed his musket and fired. The hare bolted, disappearing into the shadows. The next day, news spread that an elderly woman in the village had been found with a gunshot wound to her leg. Fear gripped the community, and Ewan was consumed by guilt and dread. That night, he was awakened by a scratching at his door. Stepping outside, he found no one there, but the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and sharp. From the darkness, a voice whispered his name, drawing it out in a mocking tone. Over the following weeks, Ewan's health deteriorated. He was plagued by nightmares in which a shadowy figure loomed over him, sapping his strength with each passing night. He sought help from the local minister, but to no avail. One morning he was found lifeless in his bed, a look of abject terror frozen on his face. The villagers spoke in hushed tones, convinced that he had been cursed by Isabel Goudie or her spectre. Even today, the tale of Isabel Goudie casts a long shadow over the Highlands. Her confessions remain some of the most detailed accounts of witchcraft practices, blurring the line between reality and myth. Some view her as a tragic figure, a woman caught in the throes of delusion or mental illness. Others believe she was a genuine practitioner of the dark arts. Modern visitors to Old Urn report an uncanny atmosphere, especially near the old sites associated with her life. They speak of certain chills on warm days, whispers that seem to emanate from the very ground, and the fleeting image of a woman watching from a distance before fading into the mist. Whether Isabel Goudie was a witch, a victim, or a storyteller, her legacy endures, a haunting reminder of a time when fear and superstition ruled, and the unknown lurked just beyond the flicker of the candlelight. As the flames of our campfire flicker and fade, these stories linger in the air like the remnants of smoke, weaving themselves into our thoughts. The tales of the witches of Zugarramurdi, the Pendle witches, and Isabel Goudie are more than just stories. They are echoes of our past, reflections of the fears and mysteries that have always haunted humanity. When you leave this circle of light and venture into the darkness beyond, remember these tales, and if you feel a chill that has nothing to do with the cold, or hear a whisper that has no source, perhaps it's a reminder that some things are not as distant as they seem. Now, friends, the night is deep, and the wind carries whispers from the ancient stones of Scotland's old castles. Tonight I have one more tale to share, a story that has been passed down through generations, echoing through the corridors of time. Is the legend of the Red Witch of Doune Castle, a haunting presence that warns those who dare to tread where history's secrets lie buried. In the heart of Scotland, where the river Teef winds its way through verdant hills and mist-shrouded glens, stands Doune Castle. This imposing fortress of stone has weathered the storms of centuries. Its battlements and towers are testament to the might of those who once ruled within its walls. Built in the 14th century, the castle has been home to dukes and earls, a silent witness to the tumultuous history of the land. But, beyond its grand halls and fortified walls, Doune Castle harbours a secret, a lingering presence that many have felt but few have seen. The locals speak in hushed tones of the Red Witch, a spectral figure draped in crimson, who roams the castle's shadowed passages. Her story is one of tragedy, betrayal, and a warning that echoes through time. Centuries ago, during the reign of King James I, Doune Castle was governed by Lord William McAllister, a man known for his valour and loyalty to the crown. Lord William was married to Lady Margaret, a woman of rare beauty and sharp intellect. With hair the colour of autumn leaves and eyes as green as the Highland hills, she was admired by many, but truly loved only by her husband. Lady Margaret was not just a noblewoman, she was also a healer. Well versed in the medicinal uses of herbs and plants, the villagers revered her for her kindness and the cures she provided. However, in an age steeped in superstition, whispers began to spread that her knowledge was unnatural, that she dabbled in the arcane arts. Amidst this growing distrust, a neighbouring nobleman named Sir Edmund Fraser sought to expand his own influence. Jealous of Lord William's standing in coveting Doune Castle, Sir Edmund devised a plan to bring about their downfall. He exploited the villagers' suspicions, spreading rumours that Lady Margaret was a witch who enchanted her husband and wielded dark powers. The tension reached a breaking point when a plague swept through the village. Livestock perished and crops failed. Desperate for someone to blame, the fearful villagers turned their eyes toward the castle. Sir Edmund fanned the flames of their anger, convincing them that Lady Margaret had cursed the land. One stormy night, as lightning tore the sky and rain lashed the stones of Doune Castle, an angry mob gathered at its gates. Torches flickered like malevolent stars as they demanded that Lady Margaret be surrendered to face justice. Lord William stood firm, refusing to hand over his wife to the frenzied crowd. But treachery was afoot. Under the cover of darkness, Sir Edmund's men infiltrated the castle through a hidden passage, opening the gates from within. The mob flooded into the courtyard, overwhelming the castle's defenders. In the chaos, Lord William was struck down, mortally wounded as he fought to protect Margaret. Captured and bound, Lady Margaret was dragged before the crowd. Rain soaked her crimson gown, and her fiery hair clung to her face. Despite the jeers and accusations, she held herself with dignity, her gaze steady. "Do you deny that you are a witch?" Sir Edmund sneered, stepping forward. "I am no witch," she replied calmly, "but you, Sir Edmund, are a murderer and a traitor." Enraged, he ordered that she be taken to the highest tower and imprisoned until dawn, when she would face execution. That night, alone in the cold stone chamber, Lady Margaret wept not for herself but for her beloved William, and the innocent lives torn apart by greed and fear. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, a profound silence fell over the castle. When the guards came to retrieve her, they found the chamber empty. The heavy door remained locked, and the narrow window was barred, a mystery that sent a ripple of unease through those present. Sir Edmund, refusing to be denied his victory, declared that she had used witchcraft to escape, and decreed that her guilt was proven. Yet, as the days passed, strange occurrences began to plague Doune Castle. Servants spoke of glimpsing a woman in a red gown, wandering the corridors, her footsteps making no sound. Guards reported hearing whispered warnings, though no one was there. Sir Edmund himself was haunted by nightmares, visions of Lady Margaret's piercing green eyes staring accusingly at him. One by one, those who had a hand in the betrayal met untimely ends. A guard fell from the battlements under mysterious circumstances. A servant was found drowned in a shallow well. Fear gripped the castle, and whispers of a curse spread like wildfire. Consumed by paranoia, Sir Edmund descended into madness. One storm-ravaged night, he was found dead in the great hall, his face contorted in terror. Scrawled upon the stone floor in a substance dark and slick were the words, "Justice is served." With relief at his death, the haunting seemed to subside, but the legend of the Red Witch had taken root. Over the centuries, Doune Castle changed hands many times, each new occupant aware of the tales, but dismissing them as mere superstition. However, reports of the apparition persisted. Visitors and staff alike recounted encounters with a woman clad in red, her expression sorrowful yet stern. One such account came from a young historian named Emily Carruthers, who stayed at the castle to study its architecture and archives. Skeptical of ghost stories, she paid little heed to the warnings. Late one evening, as she delved into old manuscripts by candlelight, she felt a chill despite the warmth of the room. The flames flickered wildly, casting erratic shadows. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a figure standing in the doorway, a woman with flowing red garments and hair that seemed to shimmer like embers. Assuming it was a member of the staff, Emily looked up to address her, but the words caught in her throat. The woman's eyes bore into hers, a mixture of sadness and urgency. "Leave this place," the apparition whispered. "Danger approaches." Before Emily could respond, the figure faded like mist, leaving the room in utter silence. Shaken, she decided to retire for the night. Moments after she left, a heavy tapestry adorning the wall behind where she had been sitting came crashing down, pulling stones loose from the aging wall. Had she remained, she would have been seriously injured, or worse. The next day, Emily shared her experience with the castle's caretaker, an elderly man named Angus. He listened gravely before revealing that others had been saved by similar warnings over the years. "Lady Margaret watches over this place," he said softly. "She cannot rest, not while danger threatens these walls." Emily delved deeper into the castle's history, uncovering records that corroborated the legend. She found letters penned by Lord William and accounts from villagers that painted a picture of innocence betrayed. The more she learned, the more she felt a profound connection to Lady Margaret. On her final night at Doune Castle, Emily stood atop the tower where Lady Margaret had been held. The moon bathed the landscape in a silvery glow. Closing her eyes, she whispered into the night, "Thank you." A gentle breeze brushed past her, carrying the faint scent of heather and a distant echo of a woman's voice saying, "Remember." To this day, visitors to Doune Castle report encounters with the Red Witch. Some feel a sudden chill or hear soft whispers when alone in the ancient rooms. Others catch a fleeting glimpse of crimson out of the corner of their eye. While some find the experiences unsettling, others believe that Lady Margaret continues to protect the castle and those within it. Perhaps her restless spirit endures as a guardian against the injustice she once suffered, a sentinel ensuring that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. So, if you ever find yourself wandering the halls of Doune Castle, be mindful of the shadows and the echoes they carry. Should you feel a chill or hear a whisper, do not be afraid. It may just be the Red Witch watching over you, offering a warning or perhaps a silent reminder of the enduring power of love and justice. As the flames dance lower and the night deepens, these stories remind us that the past is never truly gone. It lingers in the stones of ancient castles, in the whispered legends passed down through generations, and perhaps even in the spirits that still walk among us. Sleep well, my friends, and may the guardians of old watch over you until the dawn. Thank you for joining me on this dark journey through some of the world's most chilling witch legends. From mountain summits to ancient forests, these stories remind us of the power and mystery that has captivated humanity for centuries. If you enjoyed tonight's tales, don't forget to subscribe. We're so close to reaching 1,000 subscribers, and each one of you who joins is a vital part of this journey. There's plenty more darkness to explore together, so stay tuned for more eerie stories and unexplained mysteries. Until next time, keep your curiosity alive and your lights on. This is Mason, signing off from Char TV.